Welcome. You made it here, to this quiet place, to this moment that belongs only to you. Before we begin tonight, I want you to take a moment and tend to a few small things. Reach for your phone or your tablet and turn the screen brightness all the way down, as low as it will go. Let the light soften around you until it is barely there at all. If you are wearing headphones, adjust them gently. Settle them into place so they feel natural, so you barely notice them. Let the world outside these sounds fall away completely. Now find your position, whether you are lying down with your head resting on a cool pillow or sitting quietly in a chair with a blanket pulled close. Let your body settle. Let gravity do its work. Feel the weight of yourself sinking just slightly into whatever is holding you. Take a breath in through your nose, slowly. Fill your chest, then your belly, and let it go. All of it, every thought from the day, every unfinished sentence in your mind, every small worry. Let it all move out of you with that breath. Again, breathe in and out, slowly. Good. Tonight, I'm going to take you somewhere very far away, far in distance, far in time. We are going back nearly 2,000 years to a city that no longer stands in the way it once did. A city of stone and shadow and firelight, a city still and quiet in the hours before dawn. We are going to ancient Rome. The year is AD 79. The month is October. The air in this part of the world has turned cool at night, carrying with it the faint smell of wood smoke and damp stone, and the particular scent of streets that have been worn smooth by 10,000 feet over 10,000 days. The city is mostly sleeping now. Above the low clay-tiled rooftops, a crescent moon hangs in the sky like a thin white thread. It does not illuminate much. It does not need to. The city knows how to rest in darkness. The streets know how to breathe slowly at this hour. There is a bakery on a narrow street in the district called the Subura. It is not a remarkable building from the outside. Its walls are made of stone and old brick. Its doorway is low. There is a wooden sign above the entrance, but you can barely make it out in this light. Inside this bakery, there is a man named Marcus. And tonight, we are going to watch him work. There is nothing dramatic about what Marcus does. There are no great battles here, no declarations, no sudden turns of fate. There is only the slow, ancient rhythm of a man doing the same quiet thing he has done every single morning for 23 years. And somehow, that is exactly what you need right now. Let your eyes close whenever they are ready. There is nothing you need to see. There is nothing you need to do. You only need to listen. Let the story carry you. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. Not 3 o'clock in the way you might know it, with the pale glow of a phone screen, with the hum of electricity running through the walls. No, this is a different kind of 3 o'clock. Ancient and absolute, the kind of darkness that is full and complete and without apology. Marcus opens his eyes. He does not stir dramatically. He does not gasp or stretch or reach for anything. His eyes simply open in the darkness of the small room above the bakery, and he lies there for a moment, the way a person does when they have woken at the same hour for so many years that the body has learned to return to wakefulness gently, without alarm. He blinks once, twice. The ceiling above him is low and dark. A thin strip of moonlight falls through the narrow window opening in the wall. No glass, only a wooden shutter left slightly open to let in the cool air. The moonlight lands in a pale, narrow line across the stone floor beside his sleeping mat. He watches it for a moment, that line of light, still and quiet and steady. Then he sits up, slowly. His movements are unhurried. There is no rush in this hour. There is never any rush. The city will not wake for a long time yet, and the bread he will make this morning has always been made before the city opens its eyes. His feet find the floor. The stone is cold, not unpleasantly so, just cool and solid and real beneath the warm soles of his feet. He presses them flat against it for a moment, feeling the smoothness of the stone, worn to a soft polish by years of the same morning gesture. He reaches for the rough linen tunic folded beside his mat. He pulls it over his head in one slow motion. Then he wraps a wide belt of dark cloth around his waist, not tightly, just enough to hold things in place. He does all of this in near total darkness, and he does not need light to do it. His hands know the shapes of his own clothes. He stands. He is not a tall man. He is built the way men who work with their bodies tend to be, broad through the shoulders, thick through the forearms. His hands are large. The skin on his knuckles is rough. His face, if you could see it in the dark, is plain and settled, the kind of face that has long since stopped being surprised by anything. He moves toward the doorway and descends the short stone staircase that leads down to the bakery floor. Each step makes a soft, familiar sound under his weight, a slow, measured descent into the deeper darkness below. The bakery at this hour is a place of extraordinary quiet. The room is large for the neighborhood, longer than it is wide, with a low, arched ceiling of old brick. Along the far wall stands the oven. The oven is the heart of this place. It is enormous and ancient, built by the man who owned this bakery before Marcus, and perhaps by someone before him as well. Its domed shape rises nearly to the ceiling. Its mouth is a wide, low arch of dark stone. Inside the oven, from last night's baking, a few embers still breathe. They do not flame, they do not crackle, they simply glow, deep red and amber, and a faint fading orange, like something sleeping, like something still holding on to the warmth of the day before. Marcus pauses just inside the doorway and looks at those embers. This is something he does every morning. He stands in the doorway and he looks at the embers, and something in the soft light of them tells him how much work the fire will need this morning, whether it only needs to be coaxed or whether it will need to be rebuilt from the base up. This morning, the embers are good. There is life in them still. He moves to the low wooden bench along the near wall and collects a few thin pieces of kindling. He brings them to the mouth of the oven and kneels down on the stone floor, slowly, with the careful movement of a man who has learned to respect his knees over many years. He leans close to the oven. He can feel the warmth still radiating from the interior, a soft and invisible heat that presses gently against his face and his hands. He places the kindling carefully over the embers, one piece at a time. He does not hurry this. There is no impatience in it. He simply places each thin piece of wood where it needs to go, the way a person arranges something they have arranged 1,000 times before, without thought, without effort, guided entirely by a kind of knowing that lives in the body rather than the mind. He waits. And slowly, gently, the embers catch. A thin thread of flame curls up from beneath the kindling. It is small and pale orange, and it flickers once, twice, as if uncertain, and then it steadies. It grows. It begins to breathe. Marcus watches it for a long, unhurried moment. The warm light of the growing fire moves across his face, across the walls, across the ceiling. The shadows in the room shift and soften. The bakery, which a few minutes ago was all cold stone and silence, becomes something warmer now, something inhabited. He adds a few larger pieces of wood, nothing dramatic, just enough. Then he rises from his knees, wipes his hands slowly on the cloth at his belt, and moves toward the doorway that leads to the small back room where the grain is stored. The street outside is completely silent. Through the front opening of the bakery, a wide, low window that looks out directly onto the narrow street, Marcus can see the stones of the road. They are pale and still in the moonlight. There is no one there, not a sound, not a footstep, not the rattle of a cart or the murmur of a voice. The city is deep inside its own darkness, inside its own rest, and Marcus is alone with the fire and the night. He breathes in slowly through his nose. The air in the bakery smells of old wood smoke and something mineral and dry, the particular scent of flour dust that has settled into a crack and surface of this room over many years. It is a smell that is entirely ordinary to Marcus. It is simply the smell of where he is, of what he does, of every morning of his life. He moves into the back room. The grain is stored in large clay jars, sealed with wooden lids, set low to the ground along the walls. He reaches for one and removes the lid carefully, setting it aside on the floor. He reaches in with a wide wooden scoop and begins to measure out the grain he will need for the first batch of loaves. The grain makes a soft, dry, whispering sound as it falls from the scoop into the measuring vessel, a sound like something very small and steady, a sound that asks nothing of you, a sound that simply is. He measures slowly, without hurry, the scoop rising and falling in a gentle, unhurried arc. 1 measure, 2, 3.
The millstone stands near the center of the back room. It is a large thing, heavy and ancient, made of dark volcanic stone, the kind of stone found in the hills around this part of the world, dense and slightly rough to the touch, with a grain to it that is almost imperceptible beneath the fingers. The upper stone sits on the lower one, and between them is a narrow gap, Not something you could see, not something you could slip a finger into. Just enough space for grain to pass through and be changed by the slow, powerful turning of stone against stone. Marcus pours the measured grain into the hopper at the top of the mill, a slow, careful pour. He tips the measuring vessel at a steady angle, and the grain falls in a thin, continuous stream, soft and dry and whispering, settling into the hopper the way dry things settle, gathering at the center first, then spreading evenly to the edges. He sets the empty vessel down on the floor with a soft, hollow sound. Then he takes hold of the long wooden handle that extends horizontally from the upper stone, and he begins to turn the mill. The first revolution is slow. There is a low, heavy sound, a deep, grinding resonance that seems to come from somewhere inside the stone itself. It is not a sharp sound. It is not a harsh sound. It is thick and continuous and smooth, the way the sound of the ocean is continuous, the way the sound of rain on a roof is continuous, a sound that fills the room without crowding it. He turns the handle steadily, one full revolution, then another. The grain, trapped between the turning stones, is slowly and completely crushed. It does not resist. It simply yields to the weight and the motion, and what enters the mill as whole grain begins to emerge around the lower stone as something entirely different, finer, paler, a soft, continuous fall of flour that collects in a shallow wooden trough beneath the mill. Marcus watches the flour fall as he turns the handle. There is nothing else to watch. There is nothing else to tend to right now. There is only the turning, and the sound, and the pale flour gathering in the trough below. His arm moves in a wide, slow circle. His shoulder carries the weight of the motion with a kind of practiced ease. You can see in the way he holds himself that this motion is as natural to him as walking, as breathing. He does not strain. He does not lean in with effort. He simply turns and turns and turns, and the mill turns with him. The sound of the grinding fills the room entirely. It is a deep, slow sound, a rhythmic sound, a sound with no sharp edges. If you let your mind rest against it, it is almost like the sound of something enormous and far away, the sound of stone under the earth, of time moving through rock, of the world going about its oldest business. The flour in the trough grows deeper. It accumulates slowly, the way things accumulate that are not in a hurry, the way snow deepens overnight, the way sand fills a low place in the wind, quietly, gradually, without announcement. After many slow minutes, Marcus lifts his hand from the handle and lets the mill come to its own stop. The grinding slows. The sound descends, lower, slower, softer, and then it is gone. The room is quiet again. He leans over the trough and looks at the flour. It is pale and soft and very fine. In the warm glow of the fire from the other room, it looks almost luminous, the way freshly milled flour always looks, with a faint, clean brightness to it, as if it is still carrying something of the grain it came from, some last trace of the field and the light. He presses 2 fingers into it, gently. The flour yields around his fingers without resistance, perfectly soft, perfectly dry, the texture of something that has been made precisely right. He holds his fingers there for a moment, feeling the coolness of it, the fine, almost powdery smoothness. He withdraws his fingers. 2 small impressions remain in the surface of the flour. They close slowly, almost completely, as the flour settles back into itself. He carries the trough carefully into the main room of the bakery and sets it on the wide wooden work table near the oven.
The table is old. Its surface is smooth from years of use, not from any particular finishing, but from the patient work of hands and dough over a very long time. The wood has taken on a color that is somewhere between pale and warm, a color without a name, and its grain runs in long, soft lines from one end to the other. Marcus moves the flour from the trough to the center of the table. He uses his hands, sweeping slowly, spreading the flour in a wide, low mound. The flour makes a faint whispering sound as his palms move through it, as it shifts and settles and resettles against the table's surface. Marcus shapes the mound loosely with his hands, presses a well in its center. Then he reaches for the clay jug of water that sits at the end of the table. He lifts it with one hand, tilts it slowly over the well in the flour, and pours. The water falls in a thin, steady stream. It catches the firelight as it falls. It collects in the well of the flour, darkening the pale surface around the edges where it begins to soak in. A slow, spreading darkness, the way water moves through dry earth. He pours slowly, patiently. There is no measurement here beyond his own knowing, a knowing that comes from having done this so many times that the correct amount of water is not something he calculates, but something he feels in his hand, in the weight of the jug, in the look of the flour as it begins to absorb. He sets the jug down. He looks at the flour and water for a moment. The water has begun to spread beneath the surface of the well, pulling the flour inward at the edges, beginning the slow process of becoming something new. Then Marcus brings his hands to the table. He begins to bring the flour in from the edges of the mound toward the wet center. This is done slowly, with the outer edge of his hands, a gathering motion, repeated again and again, patient and unhurried. The flour folds inward, the water is caught and held, the two things begin to find each other. And then he begins to knead. This is the long part of the morning, the part that cannot be hurried, the part that does not ask to be hurried, the part that simply unfolds at its own pace and asks only that you be present for it. He presses the heels of his hands into the dough and pushes forward. The dough spreads away from him, stretching slowly, and he can feel the resistance of it, a soft, yielding resistance, like something alive but calm. Then he folds the dough back toward himself, turns it a quarter turn, and presses again. Push, fold, turn. Push, fold, turn. The movement is completely regular. There is a rhythm to it that is as steady as breathing, as steady as a slow heartbeat. Push, fold, turn. His body finds the motion and settles into it, and the motion finds him, and the two become one continuous thing. The dough beneath his hands changes very slowly. What was rough and uneven at the beginning grows smoother minute by minute. The surface of the dough, which at first was shaggy and slightly torn-looking, begins to take on a quality that is harder to name, a kind of coherence, a kind of gathered smoothness, as if all the small pieces of flour and water are slowly agreeing with each other, slowly becoming a single unified thing. Marcus does not look at the dough constantly. His eyes are soft, unfocused. He has done this so many times that his hands do the knowing. His hands feel the texture of the dough in each push and each fold, and they know without asking what the dough needs next. More pressure here, a slower fold there, a moment to let it rest. The fire in the oven has grown steadily warmer. Its light moves through the open mouth of the oven in long amber pulses, not flickering exactly, just breathing, in and out, the way a sleeping thing breathes. The warmth from the oven reaches Marcus as he works. It moves across his back, across his arms, a soft and even warmth that settles around him like something placed there gently. Not hot, not uncomfortable, just present, just warm. Push, fold, turn. The table makes a soft, low sound beneath the motion of the dough, a barely audible sound like a quiet agreement between the wood and the work being done on it. He adds a small measure of salt. He works it in slowly, pressing it into the dough with his thumbs.
The dough is ready now. Marcus knows this the way he knows everything about this work, not from a thought, not from a calculation, but from the simple, reliable knowledge of his hands. The dough beneath his palms is smooth and faintly warm, and it pushes back against him in a way that is different from how it pushed back an hour ago. It has become what it needed to become. It is ready. He shapes the loaves slowly. He divides the large mass of dough with his hands, pulling it apart with a gentle, unhurried motion, tearing it into portions that are roughly equal in size. He does not weigh them. He does not measure them. He looks at each portion in his hands, and his hands tell him whether it is right, and it always is. He takes the first portion and cups it in both hands, beginning to shape it into a round. This is another motion that has its own rhythm. He turns the dough against the table in slow, circular movements, his hands curved around it, the outer surface of the dough pulling slightly against the table's resistance, growing smoother with each revolution. The loaf takes shape gradually. Its surface becomes taut and smooth and rounded, a soft dome sitting quietly on the wooden table. He presses 2 fingers gently into its top to divide it into segments, a traditional shape, practical and familiar, the kind of shape these loaves have had for generations. 6 segments divided by shallow channels, like a flower seen from above. He sets the first loaf aside, then the second, then the third. Each loaf shaped with the same care, the same slow rotation, the same gentle final pressing of the fingers. There is no variation in his attention. The 6th loaf receives exactly the same consideration as the first. He covers the finished loaves with a length of cloth, thin and slightly worn, used for exactly this purpose, and he leaves them to rest. The oven, which has been building and breathing for the past hour, is ready. Marcus approaches it slowly and holds one hand near the open mouth of the oven, not touching anything, just feeling. The heat presses against his palm immediately, a firm, even, dry heat that speaks of a fire well managed, a fire that has been given exactly what it needed at exactly the right times. The interior of the oven is invisible from where he stands, only a deep amber glow visible in the furthest recess, but the heat tells him everything. He withdraws his hand. He takes the long wooden paddle from where it leans against the wall. The paddle is a simple thing, a wide, flat blade of smooth wood attached to a long handle. Its blade has been darkened by many years of heat and flour and use, and its surface is perfectly smooth, worn smooth by the same slow work that has smoothed everything else in this bakery. He lifts the cloth from the loaves. He slides the paddle beneath the first loaf in one careful, practiced motion, a gentle forward movement that slips the flat blade between the table and the loaf without disturbing the shape of the dough. He lifts the paddle slightly, feeling the loaf settle onto it, round and soft and waiting. He carries the first loaf to the mouth of the oven. He reaches in, slowly, steadily, his arm extending into the heat, and deposits the loaf on the floor of the oven with a single smooth motion, drawing the paddle back cleanly, leaving the loaf behind in the warmth. He does this again for the second loaf, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth. Each loaf placed carefully in its position on the oven floor,
the paddle sliding in and drawing back with the same steady motion each time, the same patience, the same reliable hand. When the last loaf is in, Marcus closes the oven mouth with a wide, flat stone, sliding it slowly into place, sealing the heat inside. He sets the paddle against the wall. He wipes his hands on the cloth at his belt. And then, for the first time all morning, he stops. There is nothing to do now. There is nothing to tend to, nothing to adjust, nothing to monitor with his hands. The loaves are inside the oven. The heat will do the rest. The fire knows its work. Marcus moves to the low wooden stool in the corner of the bakery, near the front window that looks out onto the street. He lowers himself onto it slowly, settling his weight with a quiet exhale, his broad hands resting open on his knees. He looks out through the window. The street is still completely empty. The stones are still pale and still. The crescent moon, which was high in the sky when he woke, has descended now toward the western edge of the world. Its light is softer than it was, more distant-looking. It hangs above the roof lines of the buildings across the street, framed between two low clay chimneys, a thin white curve against a sky that is just barely beginning to lose its deepest darkness. Not dawn yet, not even close to dawn, but something in the quality of the night has shifted, the way the night always shifts in the last hours before morning. A subtle softening, a very gradual loosening of the darkness, as if the sky is breathing more slowly now, as if it is beginning to prepare for something it is in no hurry to begin. Marcus watches the moon. Inside the sealed oven, the loaves are beginning their slow transformation. The heat is moving through them in invisible waves, changing the dough from the outside in, first firming the surface, then drawing out its moisture, then slowly, patiently building the crust that will make these loaves what they are meant to be. You cannot hear this happening. It is too slow and too deep to make a sound. But the warmth in the bakery has changed in the past few minutes. The fire behind the sealed oven stone breathes steadily, and its warmth fills the room in a way that is different now from the cold and the darkness of an hour ago. The room is full of warmth. Not bright warmth, not sharp warmth, just the deep, even, all-surrounding warmth of a well-built oven working quietly at its purpose. Marcus feels it settle around him as he sits. His shoulders soften slightly. His hands rest more heavily on his knees. He does not think about anything in particular. There are no pressing thoughts. There is no inventory to worry over, no problem to solve. These are the quiet minutes between the work and the next work, and he has learned over 23 years to simply be inside them, to let the waiting be its own thing, unhurried and complete. Outside, somewhere in the direction of the forum, a night bird calls once, a soft sound, brief and distant. Then silence again. The flame inside the oven makes a faint, low, crackling sound, just barely audible through the stone, the kind of sound a fire makes when it is content, when it has been given what it needs, and it is doing what it was made to do. Marcus listens to it. His breathing slows. The crackle of the fire is steady and low, and it does not change. It simply continues, a soft, continuous, barely there sound, like the sound of something breathing beside you in the dark, easy and slow. Easy and slow. The moon inside the window moves almost imperceptibly lower. The darkness of the sky begins to take on a quality that is very slightly less absolute. Somewhere behind the eastern edge of the city, too far away to see, too early to feel, the sun is beginning the long process of returning. It will be many hours yet, but something knows, something in the darkness knows that the turning is happening. the way all things know about turnings, long before they can be seen or felt. Marcus sits with this. His eyes are soft. The light of the oven, which finds its way around the edges of the sealed stone, casts a very faint amber warmth on the floor at his feet. His shadow sits behind him, barely visible, leaning against the corner where the walls meet. He breathes in, slowly. He breathes out, slowly. There is nothing more needed from this moment than exactly this. The warmth, the quiet fire, the smell of baking bread beginning, very faintly, very early, to move through the sealed stone of the oven and into the air of the room. It is not a strong smell yet. It is barely a smell at all, just the softest suggestion of it, the ghost of wheat and heat and something almost sweet, something almost warm, moving through the air like something that wants to be noticed but is not trying to demand anything. Marcus notices it. He breathes it in, and he waits. The city around him sleeps on. Behind the walls of the bakery,